Hello. What was your first computer?
Oh yeah. Well, my first computer was in a Spectrum. I mean, I will say that a lot of people, was like Commodore or Spectrum. In my case, was in a Spectrum, and I was like 8 years old or 7 years old, and that was, and even I remember my first game in this Spectrum, which was called Desperado, which is a Spanish game, and it was a cowboy shooting all the gangs. Yeah, I really remember learning to play this game with my father. Yeah.
Cool. And Desperado is also a beer brand.
Yeah, that's true.
Desperados, yeah. I think. But this is
it's Desperados. Right? Yeah, it's a Mexican beer. Yeah, but in this case, then I know that they did the international version of the game, but they changed the name to another name. But yeah, it was. But in this case, yeah, I mean that also it was like from the Old West. So I would say that the theme between the beer. I mean, when you see all these labels of the beer, and the game was pretty much the same, the same age or the same theme.
Okay, so they knew that. Interesting. And I also had that ZX Spectrum. So which ZX Spectrum did you have? So was it that one with the rubber keys, or was it the larger one?
No, it was the larger one that worked with the tape. Right, and it was like a 128 piece of RAM. So yeah, I mean,
kilobyte piece of RAM, of course.
Kilobyte, yeah.
Yeah. Then I think I had exactly the same one. So it was the data set, the tape, and the keyboard were tied together. So this was like one unit, and this was like a gray machine, and this was already Amstrad or something like this, right?
Yeah. I think that the Amstrad, they use the same. But it works with disk, if I remember correctly, in case of Amstrad.
Yeah, but your machine was ZX Spectrum 128K, which was one unit with a tape. Okay, then we had exactly the same machine.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Hey, cool.
I'm still having it. I mean, I know that at my parents' home there is a box. And there you can find the Spectrum with all the games, and everything is still there because I know because I checked like 6 months ago. So
so you're checking every 6 months whether your ZX Spectrum is still available, right?
No. Yeah, exactly. Well, it was because I was looking for another thing, and you start opening all the boxes, and you say, oh look, this is the Spectrum, and I know all the tapes there. Yeah, so it's. I don't know if it works or not, but yeah, this is another thing.
Yeah, you have to rewind the tapes from time to time, then it will work better. But I also had that ZX Spectrum, played a lot, and I forgot actually my favorite games. But there are lots of games and lot of nice games. I have to remember. But how you got your computer? So your parents gave a computer to you, or?
Well, yes. Well, basically it was that one friend of mine had the Spectrum, right? And I said, I also want a Spectrum to start playing the games and so on. And then at the end they bought me the Spectrum, and I had the Spectrum with this game, and I started. I would say that like everyone like that, you start playing, but then there was like in the main menu of the Spectrum there was one. A place that you said basic and basic 48 or something like that. I think that was something this, and then I start pushing that, and then I could start setting some commands there, right? That it was the basic language, but I didn't know. I just had some the manual of the Spectrum, and also I bought some magazines, and I started playing there, copying some commands like poke. Ram. I don't remember. There was a lot of
pick and poke. This was the exactly. Ram was a comment, and pick and poke was the most important one. Exactly.
Yeah, just to put things in memory, right? But at that time, since I mean maybe at that time I was like 8 years old. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I just, copying things and then modifying things to see how the behavior changes. And I remember doing a clock, for example, and where you can draw line. I remember that you could even draw lines and circles with the spectrum. And I, started doing things that.
Yeah, with the clock, I also remember. And the problem is the hands of the clock. You had to do a lots of math. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. But yeah. I mean, it was like, But as I said, I was really young, so I didn't exactly know what I was doing. I mean, now I know when I'm coding, I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. At that time, it was more like, okay, I'm going to copy this program, and then let's modify this and see what's happened. And now let's put this in here and see,
Look,
these kind of changes.
My first attempt to code on basic with basic on ZX Spectrum was, I thought how it works is that you with the RAM. This is the comments in BASIC.
Yeah.
I can implement something like ASCII-based animations. So my expectation was I would write, the entire screen RAMs, and then for unknown reasons the screen will just, switch to another screen with RAMs, and this was how it worked. This was my idea how you can implement a game. So, I'm just curious. Why? You push the basic button, or why you were curious, about the programming and not just keep playing?
The truth is that I don't remember.
Okay.
So I could say something really, yes, because it was something that I know that I was born to do it, and so something like that. But that's not true. The truth is that I don't remember. Probably, you had the menu there, and you were curious to know what's happened when you go to another options of the menu. And then, I don't know, I mean, I asked to my father, hey, what can I do in this console, right, or in this terminal? And probably my father went to the manual, read the manual and said, oh, look, here it says that if you put this program, then you will see some kind of hello world, right? And I said, okay, I'm going to copy it. And then I just, do things like that. So
okay, we got you. So now, when you started programming then?
Yeah, well, let's say that this does not count. I started programming, I think I was like 15 or 16 years old, more or less, when you started getting the internet era. Let's say I remember that I was one of the first guys in the school that I had internet.
Okay.
Why? And I asked.
Why you were the best guy with the internet and the others didn't have the internet?
Yeah, well, as I said, it was really in the beginning here in Spain of having, internet in public available. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I was, really curious in the sense of communication with others. I remember sending an email to unknown people just because it was like, whoa, I can send an email to someone. And they just, get back the message, and it's like, like you were doing text messaging or pen pals, if you wish, but without having to send a letter, and you get a response pretty fast, let's say, right, in one day or something like that. And now it's really, we can say that it's really natural. But when I saw that I could do this, it was like, oh, I need internet at home to do it more. And then I get it. Basically, I remember starting with Netscape, with one of the first version of Netscape, and then I saw that I could do HTML, and I could even. I remember my internet provider, which was a really small company, that it was like, I think that they had like 15 clients. Can you imagine? And that's 15 clients, and only an internet company or internet provider with just 15 clients, and they give you like maybe 1 megabyte of disk or 2 megabytes of disk to provide your own website. And it was like, oh, it's really nice. I'm going to, create my own website. And I remember making there some kind of sentences and write some funny sentences or jokes, right, about music and so on. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to start learning. And I just started learning HTML. And then the next step was, but I would like to, to do some kind of alerts and so on. And then I started learning JavaScript. And I could say that at that time is when I started knowing what I was doing. Right? It was like, okay, I'm using HTML, I'm using JavaScript, and I know why here I'm putting an if, or why here I'm putting an alert, or why I'm using here a for, or or all the HTML elements. What is a P? What is a table? What is an EMG tag? So on. So then let's say that I get some conscious of programming, and then I just started university at 17, and then I started doing C.
Okay, cool.
And
do you remember Netscape Composer?
Netscape Composer, yeah, I remember to do the. Yeah, in fact, I started in this way. I remember starting Netscape, then you get it Netscape Composer, and then I remember even the battle within front. I don't know what it's called, front page. I guess that was called.
Front page from Microsoft. This was what
right.
Generated beautiful HTML. Very clean and beautiful markup.
Yeah, but I remember
semantic HTML5. It was almost HTML6.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember doing with Netscape Compose, and then there was the Netscape Email Client, if I remember correctly, as well.
Exactly.
And it was like a suite of tools, like the browser, the Composer, the email. And I think that was something else. But I mean I started with Netscape Composer doing drag and drop, and then said, and doing like, okay, that's really nice. Let's see how the HTML file looks like, not with the preview. And then you say, and you start navigating with other sites, and you see some really nice maybe effects or animations, because I remember that you could do really nice fancy effects at that time. And I said, how they are doing this? And then I go there and I edit, push the view code button, and learning HTML because there was no books. Then I remember later that I bought an HTML book and so on, so I could learn in a more structured way.
Mm-hmm. But why you started programming? Were you somehow fascinated? So you still kept playing games, or you stopped playing games and just became the hacker? So what's the story behind this? Is the interesting part, because usually so you play a lot of games, and in one point of time you started coding HTML, and then you learned JavaScript. So what was the story behind?
Well, I think that the story behind was like to try to be the first one, right, of doing things that maybe most of the people were not doing it, right? I mean, that it was like nobody has a personal page. I mean, that there was only like, maybe in all the worldwide, I mean, there was no Google, nothing. It was Yahoo. Maybe it was
Lycos, Alta Vista.
Lycos, exactly, Alta Vista, and not so much more. And I remember that you need to register your site there manually. There is a button.
Exactly. There was the Yahoo directory, I think. Yahoo was there, right?
Yeah. And I remember saying, look, there is not much pages, so I want to have my own page. And, it was like, okay, I need to learn this and put it there because it's something that it's really cool, it's really new. Not so many people have it, so it's going to be really nice to do it. And, I started in probably because, I mean, it's something like it happens with the spectrum and the menu, right? That it was like, I'm curious to know what is this menu doing. And then in this case, I said, okay, let's say, and I'm curious about internet that nobody is, or a few people is using, and I'm curious, to learn how to do my personal page that nobody has, and so on, right? So probably it's more like the curiosity of learning new things or doing things that they are pretty new, which leads me.
When was it? It was 1995.
Yeah, 95. Yeah, 95, 96. Yeah, or 94. Yeah, it should be around this. Because it was pretty much before. Yeah, even 94. Yeah, because it was long time before I started going to discos and so on. So.
Okay. So,
probably it's that
okay.
one, yeah.
So what I remember from the Netscape Composer, it crashed all the time. This was the problem. So I used that, but it crashed. The software wasn't very stable. This is what I remember with the Composer. What I also remember is the Netscape. By the way, the Netscape Navigator in the Composer, what I like is the icons and the look and feel. It looked really interesting for that time. And I used the Netscape Mail for a long time. And it became, in one point of time, the Thunderbird from Mozilla. So the mail client from Netscape became open source, and you can still use it right now. So you can use the Netscape, the old, now it's probably refactored several times, but now it's called, Thunderbird.
Yeah, under the Mozilla
Yeah, exactly.
open source
Yeah. So,
initiative.
and you started hacking JavaScript as well back then, or so just HTML?
Yeah. No, HTML, and I mean that probably I mean that I started with HTML, and after 3 months, when you have done a lot of HTML, and at that time it was always the same because it was like text, images, and tables, and that's all.
Yeah.
Then you said, okay, let's try to do another, because it was really nice, right? To when someone reached your site, put there a JavaScript alert saying, hey, thank you very much for coming to my site, and things like these things, right? That you force the user to read the message and push accept, right, or okay, or whatever, right? So I started with this minimal JavaScript, putting alerts, and then doing more and more complicated things, like, for example, the guess a number, right, game, and I started creating. I mean, not the JavaScript games as we understand today, but something like, okay, I remember that I did some JavaScript saying that there was the typical problem that you said, put a number, and you said, okay, the number 5, and say, no, the number that I'm thinking is bigger than 5, right?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you put 10, no, it's lower. And so I remember implementing this kind of games in JavaScript with the forms, right? I mean, that you started doing forms and this stuff.
Okay.
Which is really nice, because I would say that this was the why I started doing Java.
Okay,
This
cool.
was because of this.
So what's so you told me after that you went to university with 17, which is pretty early, I would say, and then you
Yeah.
why so early? Is this normal?
Yeah, well, because I'm from I'm from July, and I mean that usually people get to university at 18, but I still didn't have the age.
Okay.
I mean, let's say that it was the year that I was getting to 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an 18. Yeah.
And because you started with the HTML stuff, you then decided to study computer science, and what's the story?
No, all my life it's something that I wanted to do.
Okay.
I mean, even with the Spectrum, I remember to talking with my parents. Yeah, I want to, but I would like to study computer engineering. And even I remember that when I was like probably 12 or 11, I said, but what I want to do is, stay focused on the hardware. I mean, that fix hardware, right? Fix computer, build computers, and all this kind of stuff. I remember saying, yeah, I want to study to build computers. But yeah, this was something, that happens at the time. And then with the age, you say, now what I want to do is just program, right? Or coding and so on.
So you then started with C at the university. So were you
Yeah.
shocked with C?
No, it was. I mean that I really like it. In fact, it was what shocked me a lot was because you do like 6 months of C, and then you start doing C++. And what really shocked me was the friendly operator, or well, not operator, it's the friendly reserved word in C++ that you can access all the private attributes in the classes. And it's like putting attributes as public. Because I remember with C that you should, you have this type def. You could, with type def, you could define your own structs, and you can access the attributes freely. Then you started doing C++, and you start doing the private fields. And it was like, oh man, I cannot access the fields, right? It was like, why I cannot access the fields if I can do it with C? And then they just show you the friendly keyword. It's like, oh, you can put, all the friendly keyword, and then you can access
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that. There was
views.
a friend relationship. And as I started in Java, I always ask, where is the friend relationship? And there's something like package-wide visibility. But for a long time, I also searched for I completely forgot about the friend. Was it friend? Friend.
Yeah, friend.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an operator or it's a reserved keyboard, but just that, the friend. Yeah. But then, I was missing something at that point. And it's like, it's really nice, but what I want to do is just create an HTML form and send this form to the server side and do things, right? And it was like, I would like to do that, but I cannot do it with C or C++, or at least I didn't know how to do it. And I cannot do it with JavaScript. So I started learning Java. Because I was like, oh, look, with Java, there is the servlet API, which it's perfect to do what I want to do. Right, which is like sending a form data and then just manipulate this data and send it back and generate dynamically.
But why you didn't start it with, let's say, CGI back then was very popular, or Perl or PHP? Why not PHP? Why you just use Java?
Well, the truth is that in my university, they have always been really Java friendly or Java advocates. And at that time, I asked to the teacher, hey, look, I want to do this. Do you know how I can do it? And they said, yeah, take a look at Java. And even I remember that at that time, it was Java 1.2.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, because you need, I remember that you need to add to the class path the swing.jar file into the class path, because it was not, I remember, I think it was 1.2 that happens this. And this is when I started. And I started doing these swing applications and at the same time I was learning the servlet API. And
so if you did the swing applications, then I think in this particular time, they renamed. There was like exactly the same strategy like now with Jakarta and JavaX and Jakarta namespace. Back then, the same happened with Swing. Do you remember? Because at the beginning, there was ComSun Swing, and then they renamed that to JavaX Swing. You remember?
JavaX Swing, yeah.
And then it was part of the JDK. Then you didn't have to add the swing.jar. Yeah. It just shipped with JDK. This was actually... So we had already, a small drama with package renaming back then.
Yeah, and even I remember that I was, that you couldn't download Java from internet, at least at my home, because it was really slow, the connection, because it was like a normal modem with just 53 kilobytes or kbps.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really
was it
really
robotics?
Slow. Yeah, robotics. Maybe it was robotics. I don't remember now. Was robotics, probably, because I think that it was like one or two companies that they were doing all this.
Exactly.
I remember this wang.
Exactly.
This, sound.
But it was very similar to the Spectrum sound.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. And then I remember that I bought a magazine where they come with a CD, and this CD contains Java inside, a Java work something. It was called Java work.
Java Soft.
Yeah, Java Soft Work.
Java Studio Workshop? Java Studio Workshop?
Yeah, exactly. Java Studio Workshop. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably this was this one.
Yeah, this was Java Workshop and Java Studio. And the Java Workshop was like IDE, and the Java Studio, you could connect Java beans with like pipelines. So you could connect, you can build an application without programming. This was Java Studio. And the Java Workshop was like a proper IDE from Sun Microsystems.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was Java Workshop. Yeah. Well, anyway, I remember installing all the Java with the CD, and I started doing things in Java with all this CD. And then I had another. I remember that after Swing, but I think it was like this the next year. I started doing Swing, and then I needed a Java server, right, to be able to send requests to a server, because at that time there was no servers that supported Java to run it. And I remember one that is called Orion.
Orion, the Orion server was from Sweden, and it was bought by Oracle. Orion is also a really nice server, Orion,
That you do Java new jar, Orion the jar, and then it started there, and I don't remember where you copied the WAR file, or I don't
Yeah,
remember.
and the Orion
how
had a
that
nice
works.
admin interface, and I think even in Swing, so that you can administer, Orion with Java GUI.
Yeah, but I don't remember, administrating with the UI. But yeah, I don't remember this, and yeah, I don't remember using the servlet API. So
The
I would say
question now
that,
to you: why you use Swing at all? Why you didn't just keeping writing forms with HTML and JavaScript and sending your stuff to the servlet?
well, because at that time I remember that it was just at the end was really the beginning of everything, and I remember that I was really curious on doing the UI. That, let's say, UI windows, right? Like the applications are used to use in my Windows. At that time was Windows, and I remember saying, oh, it's really nice that I can I have any application that I do double click, and then boom, it opens with some widgets and so on, right? And it was like, I want to do that as well for my for the applications that I'm developing. So something that I was thinking more like that I could distribute to my friends, right? That I could create games in the sense of, like I said before, like more of this guess what and things like that, not games.
Yeah, of course.
To play, right? Well, I remember with Swing doing a pang, the pang of this shooting the balls.
Mm-hmm.
That was the game. Yeah, I remember doing some kind of visual games as well, and just I could share with my friends. This was something that at that time I couldn't do with the HTML and Java.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did things in parallel, things with Swing, things with servlet, with not with a lot of direction. Let's say it was more like learn. I was more eager to learn everything more than having a direction of I want to do this or I want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. And you just kept doing Java as a hobby during your university time, or what? Why you did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. After that time, I started doing Java. It was in the second year. Yeah, because the first year was C++. We also did assembler, and what else? This is the first year, and then the second year, we started with. We did C++, and I started with Java. And I stick to Java until today.
Very cool. And when you got your first, client assignment or project or your first commercial project, so what was your Java journey?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I started doing this Java thing at the second year, my second year of university, and then. I remember that when by the end of the second year, I remember seeing one paper in the university saying, "Look, if you, if we are looking for computer engineers for I don't remember which company," and they said, if you have experience, we are going to pay I don't remember something, but if you don't have experience, we are going to pay this other amount. I don't remember the amount, but it was like the double, right?
Okay.
If you have experience, they pay you the double. And it was like, oh man, next year I need to start looking for a partial job. Mm-hmm. Because then when I finish the university, then I will be more well paid than now. And then by the beginning of my third year of university, I contact with one teacher in the university, and they told me that there is some companies that we have an agreement that they are coming to the university. Here we have some rooms with the computers, and then you can they send us some some managers or some engineers, and they are teaching you how you can do the work for them, and you're getting paid. And then I just started there with Java, and in fact some of the few guys in the university that I knew Java, servlet API, and so on. And I mean that at that time we used, if I remember correctly, the JBoss server, the version 3 something, if I remember correctly, with Ant. I remember using Ant
and Xtoclet, of course.
Yeah, for the generation. And then I asked up there. It was when I start, let's say, working in real projects in collaborations between enterprises and university.
What was it? What kind of project was it? So what you built then?
That we built. I think that it was something like a portal, if I remember correctly. I know I cannot remember exactly, because I remember the second project. It was a project with XML and XML schema, XML the template engine, and so on. I remember, writing a lot of template engine stuff. Mm-hmm. This was the second one, and the third one was a voice IP project. Oh. I remember we were one of the first projects out there. I remember that there was even a spec or an attempt to create a spec
SIP,
for
right?
voice
Session
IP.
initiation protocol with Servlet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Servlet. Yeah, I remember that it was really the beginning. I remember that the spec was not approved yet, or it was writing down at that time. So yeah, it was that time as well. And the first one project, I think that it was something like a portal, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you just kept cranking the enterprise projects, or what was the story behind? So you already JBoss 3. So I assume it was around 2004 already, right? Something like this.
No. It should be 2002 or 2001. Okay. So maybe it was not JBoss, but it was 2002. It should be around this date. So maybe it was not JBoss 3, but I don't. Yeah, but it was like 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, but I remember in one project working with JBoss 3 and the Xdocklet, and I start doing all the AGBs with all the XMLs and so on. The first versions of BMP and CMP.
Yeah, of course. This was the persistence.
Yeah, for the persistence. Yeah.
And you liked that or not? So what was your impression back then?
I really like it.
Okay.
But it was my. It was another. I remember that it was, let's say, not painful, but I remember having a paper where writing down there all the things that you need to do a CMP. Yeah, I need to create an interface, and then another interface. This interface needs to extend this other interface, and then I need to create an XML with all this stuff and implement these methods. I remember having this kind of paper, but it was, for me, it was really nice to see that you have an object, you do you get it the object, and then it just save it, right, in the persistence.
Yeah.
Automatically. It was like, wow, it's really nice, because I remember at the time that I was also doing the database lesson in the university. And we were doing SQL, and everything was, manual. Open the connection, do the SQL, insert, blah, blah, right? And with the CMP, everything, or almost everything, comes for free. Yeah. And it was like, oh, this is really powerful. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but it's true that if you now see, back on time, it was like, it was really painful, all these AGB.
Yeah, but what you shouldn't forget is, back then, we didn't have even Java 5. So there was no way to put the metadata somewhere. So the natural place was either object serialization, which was the early versions of EJBs, or XML. So there is no other way. And if you put something to XML, you already have the problem that you have to maintain, your truth, your data, and in two places, right?
Yeah.
In XML and in Java code, which was a little bit painful in refactoring, because if we renamed, let's say, an interface, or we moved an interface to different package, you also had, to keep in sync the Xdocklet files. Otherwise, you get not Xdocklet files rather than deployment descriptors. Otherwise, you get the deployment errors. And then Xdocklet kicked in, and what Xdocklet actually was the attempt to generate the deployment descriptors from the source code, so there was no problems anymore if you moved something or renamed something, right?
Even now, I'm remembering the day that I updated the Java version to 1.3.1. I remember this day. Now that we were talking, I remember. I'm watching myself on that computer installing 1.3.1. I remember. Then I remember the.
And do you remember the? Okay, then what was the main feature of JDK 1.3? You remember that? Why we were all excited about JDK 1.3?
Oh no, I don't remember. I remember
Hotspot.
1.4.
I think with 1.3 hotspot came. So with JDK 1.2, so JDK 1.3 was way faster than 1.2. This is what I remember. I was also very excited with JDK 1.3. Yeah, this was because of the hotspot or some optimization internally. So we'll double check that.
Yeah, I remember this then 1.4, and then I remember the 1.5 with the templates.
Huge,
yeah, with 1.5 I still remember. I remember that 1.6 that it was like, okay, it's just some string new methods.
Yeah,
it was something like that for me. I mean, I know that it contains more things, but then I worked in the university. I finished the university. Then I moved to do medical devices, for 6 years, which was really nice because it was medical devices. But we do robots, right? These typical robots that they just take blood from some tubes and then put this blood in some cards, and then you need to centrifugate these cards. But it was all everything done automatically. It was it's with robot arms moving, and it was nice because it was this part of the machine, but the let's say that the front end and everything was a web application. Okay. So and it gives us a lot of advantages because then the people who are managing these machines didn't have to go inside the laboratory. They could check how was performing the machine and everything from outside the room.
Yeah, it was really IoT, right?
Well, this was 2005.
Yeah, but this is no different to IoT to me, right?
Yeah, if you will, we can think about as IoT, but I mean, I will never say that this is like I mean, there was no IoT in fact, if you think it.
No, but
yes, but was,
having controlling robot over internet is for me classic IoT, right?
we can say that that this was IoT. Yeah. And after that, I moved.
At least it's more interesting than controlling a light bulb, over internet.
That's true. Yeah, but I really love this job because the interface it was like a two-phase interfaces. Like we usually think about the UI, right? I mean that as a browser or on a screen, but in this case we were doing things like move the arm from this position to this other position, and you saw a physical machine moving, right? Yeah. And it was like, well, look, I'm doing with Java. Move from this to that, and then you see the robot, the arm moving to one place to another, picking things, moving things, and so on.
Cool. This was in Java?
Yeah, it was in Java. Cool. Yeah, we just have a DLL, which is one for the communication with RS port, the serial port, right? So we just have then a minimal DLL for sending communication through the serial port, and that's all. The rest, it was in Java, everything. And after that, after 6 years or 7 years,
why you left the project then? It was so interesting with robots, so why you left the company?
Oh well, it was like at the end, it's really interesting, but it seems interesting. But at the end, after the years, everything is exactly the same, right? Exactly. At the end, you are just coding, and at the beginning it's really nice, but with time to time, you get bored of doing exactly the same, and you somehow you lose the interest, and you start checking for other things, or rather than stay focused on exactly what you need to because it was like it was 8 years, so it was like 8 years, and one of the things that I understand why, but I didn't like, is that the projects are not 6-month projects, are 5 years, 6 years projects. There's really huge projects with, because you have all the hardware needs to be developed, and then they ask you a lot of, integrations between the hardware and the software, and also to integrate with the hospitals' IT systems. So, it's pretty big, right? But so it's always during, 8 or 7 years and a half doing exactly the same project, the same machine, the same logic. And then also you started doing the bug fixing phase where you just fix bugs. You do not develop a lot of new features, right? And and then the end is, okay, I need to change. And I changed it to consultancy, but after 6 or 8 months in the consultancy, the project was not really, it was a BPM, right?
Okay.
So it was just programming a BPM, and it was something like, okay, that's fine, but it's not something that I understand that there are people that likes to do that, but in my case, it was, okay, I'm just dragging, boxes from the IDE. It was IBM BPM, in fact.
Okay.
And you just, drag boxes from the IDE there, and then programming something. So it was, okay, that's fine. But then I moved to a really interesting company. It's called Cytel, which they do electronic voting systems. And it was really, it was really nice. We did everything in Java.
Okay.
And in fact, they are still ruling elections in US, in Switzerland, in Norway, even for example in Arabia, and that also in the Middle East they are ruling all these.
And was it interesting project? And was it interesting for you?
Yeah, it was. It was interesting, and you learn a lot of security stuff, right? Cryptography stuff. Because at that point, what was really important is the security, right? That nobody can change your vote, or that the guy who's saying that he's voting, it's really voting, and it's the guy who's voting, and not another with another guy with another credentials, or someone who can stole the credentials or something like that. So it was really interesting projects, a lot of cryptography, security. Electronic voting protocols for all this stuff.
Was it also enterprise Java, or was just straight Java SE?
It was it was a Spring project, a Spring framework. not a Spring Boot, Spring.
Yeah. So now the question, because you have the experience with back then the Spring Classic and JBoss. So was it any difference for you, or you have to relearn, or what was your impression of Spring Classic and, the JBoss prior project, what you did?
At that time, because at that time it was when the Java E6 was out there. But before that, I really loved the Spring. Because, it was like, okay, now I don't need to, I don't need to do all this HGB stuff. There was no CDI as well, and I have this dependency injection with a Spring that I can, put it in the XMLs and inject my instances, and it's, it was really cool. And I work with the Spring. Then I get it to this. For example, all these medical devices are running with the Spring, because we use Spring framework, right? So it was that time that Java E was it was still Java G2EE and not Java E. So when I saw all the Spring and all the Hibernate stuff, it was like, wow, that's really nice. In fact, for example, these medical devices were the typical Spring plus Hibernate framework, right? So and I felt better, but then it came Java E5, and it was like, whoa, Java E5, it's like a revamp of the Java or the J2E. And it's really cool. But then in this project, in the Cytel, most of the things were already done in Spring, and almost all the people had a knowledge of Spring and not for Java EE. So it was really hard to change their mindset. But I tried, But then it was like, oh yes, but a Java EE container takes like 1 minute to boot up, right? And it was like, no, there is Tommy. I remember that time there was Apache Tommy, and it was like, look, Apache Tommy, it's fully compliant and it just boot ups in 1 second, 2 seconds, and it works really, really well. It's a Tomcat and something that we are used to work, and then some services. What I started doing with Java EE, with Tommy, others one with, then we had another project. Well, then I moved from project to product. So because there was like two departments in the company, the projects, which is like, okay, it comes a country and they said, like, look, I want to implement an electronic voting system, please implement it for my country. And then we've got also the brand of the product. So when you create products and you go to the companies or countries or states, in case of United States, say, look, this is our product. It works in this way. If it fits your requirements, then it's really more. It's not as expensive as doing, customers or custom development. And I moved to the product, and some of the services there were done with Glassfish, another one with Tommy, other ones with Wildfly. So at the end, I was able to convince some people that maybe it was time to stop using Spring because you have been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, and maybe it's just time to start doing some new things.
What I'm curious, why you introduced Java EE when Spring was everywhere back then? Because so what I will do, so if Spring works well, I would just keep doing Spring. So the problem is, that then you needed an expert in Spring and Java EE at the same time. So why they had so many Java EE projects? It didn't just keep using Spring. So this is what's interesting to me.
Well, yeah, we changed it. I mean, that we still had a lot of Spring services as well. We didn't remove Spring, but a lot of people had the feeling that as I said, that it was time to learn something new.
Okay.
Right? To say, yeah, it's more like, okay, now, I mean, that for me, it was, I mean, that back then I saw Java EE like, the direction to follow, something that I really love at that then when I saw all the dates with the CDI, the JPA, and so on. And also then I discovered, let's say, basically Apache Tommy, which it was like a Tomcat plus all the rest of JAX-RS and so on.
Yeah, and it still is. Tommy is still great. It's still available, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't meant to say.
No, but I say this is just.
But I agree. I mean, but at that time was when I discovered Tommy, right? And it was like, oh, it's really great. Then I showed to all the people, look, this is how Java EE works. Preparing the slides and so on. I remember that I started advocating on conferences about Java EE. I remember, for example, the first edition of JVCNConf, that my first talk was about Java EE, right? And I showed them that how you can do everything. It's pretty much the same as a Spring, right? No XML, just annotations, and the server boots up really, really fast. So there is no excuses. And people said, oh, yeah, it's true. And, I want to learn something new because, as I said, I've been doing Spring for the last 3-4 years. And now at least I can start checking how to operate Java EE server, how to develop an application with Java EE, new annotations, new stuff, new interfaces. And yeah, this basically was the reason why we start, let's say, adding. It was not a microservices architecture, but adding some.
When was it? Was it 2008?
No. Or maybe I don't remember. But probably it's 2008. Let me evaluate. No, 2000. I was like, well, it's easy. No, it was 2013.
Oh, so
2013. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
13 or 14, yeah.
So that's interesting. So I never saw that because there were projects who asked me to migrate away from Spring, And I always asked the questions, and there was different reasons, political reasons or whatever. And the first time I heard that, the Spring team decided, to move to Java EE just because they are bored. So, which is interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's not much. It's more than bored. I would say that we want to learn something, right? At the end, it's in every company there is this graph that there is the 5% of people are innovators. Then there is the majority, the minority, and so on, right? Yeah. So it's just a matter of saying, okay, I really believe myself. I really believe in Java EE. I would like to people see Java EE as it is nowadays, not something that takes 1 minute to boot up, not something that you need to write a lot of XMLs. It's something that boots up in seconds. You have annotations and so on. You've got
but your belief was more like because of the annotations and speed, right? So you believed in Java EE because you said, okay, you are more productive, it's faster and leaner, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I get it. So not like because of JCP or standardization, your belief was through productivity.
Yeah. That was my I always just listening the problems that people argue against Java EE, let's say, and then I said, no, look.
Exactly.
And then let's say that in this case, maybe I was a bit smart, let's say, and I just identified which are the teams that wants to learn something, that they are curious. They are not just here to program, get a salary, and done. I just found the teams that they have members that they wanted to learn things.
Yeah.
They wanted to learn new things. They said, okay, they are curious. They are not just here, to code. And then I said, look, and then I just present everything. Also, I must say that some of these people already know that Java EE was really fast and so on. So, I'm not saying that all of them were ignorant. No, it was not like that. There was some people there already knowing this, but let's say that for my position at that time, I was architect in that company. For my position, helped to that.
Okay.
Moved to this direction.
And you this was still the voting machine company, right?
Yeah. Voting machine.
And you left the machine, You left the company.
Yeah. And I moved to CloudBees, the company behind Jenkins.
Okay, that's interesting. So this was a prior JBoss employees, right? Created CloudBees.
Yeah. I was,
the extremely smart Japanese guy. So what is his name?
Yeah, Kosuke.
Yeah, Kosuke, exactly.
KK.
Yeah, he's like crazy smart, and he's one of the actually the Jenkins or Hudson creator, and he also created lots of Glassfish goodness, right?
Yeah. And also I must say that 2 days ago or 3 days ago, he left CloudBees and he created, he co-created his own company, Launchable, which, with Harper, with another former guy from CloudBees. Yeah, this happened 2 days ago or something like that.
Okay, cool.
Or 3 days ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what his company is going to do?
They are doing smart testing.
Okay.
So what they say, it's something that I work with Bartosz in RedHat.
Okay.
That it's more like instead of running all the tests of your project with a given commit, instead of doing this, what they say that they're going to do, and in fact it's possible because we did in RedHat, and it's like, okay, you've done a commit, we know for this commit which lines you have modified, we know which test verifies these lines, so we are only going to run this test and not the full stack.
This was one of the features, I think, from the Bamboo CI/CD, right? So there's one commercial tool which had also such features. Okay, that is very interesting. Okay,
and this company, they are going to do machine learning to detect this.
Yeah, cool. But what's your story? So why you left the voting machine company? Why you joined CloudBees? Mm-hmm.
Well, basically because
you were bored.
CloudBees. No. The reason was that I was approached by CloudBees manager, Ryan, and said, "Hey, we are really interested in taking someone who can help us in the testing, in defining the testing strategy. And also at that time I was working with Mesos, Apache Mesos, in this electronic voting company. And at that time, CloudBees were working also in Apache Mesos.
Okay.
Not in Kubernetes. That was like, I mean, because it was before. I mean, it was just the beginning of Kubernetes at that time. So nobody knows exactly what was the direction or what's going to happen. And since I had experience in Apache, Mesos, the testing and so on, they approached me and they told me, hey, look, it will be really interesting if you can join us to the company and so on. And for me, it was really easy because, first of all, I'm start working in CloudBees, which for me, it was like, wow, it's a US company that is behind an open source project, something that I really love, all the open source projects. And it was like, okay, cool, I can start being paid for contributing to open source, which was, with these Jenkins. This is the another reason. And the third reason is like it's full remote job. So I do not have to go to the office anymore, right? So it was really easy, right? It was like everything are advantages.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was really interesting, the electronic voting system.
What you did at CloudBees then?
In CloudBees, basically, it was in the back then was the CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, which is the paid. That time was the paid version of Jenkins. So basically, I developed there some plugins for the enterprise version, and also I, checking all the test suite, the test bed framework, and so on, and improving it, and and modifying. I mean, sometimes there was some flaky test on the test bed suite. Then I just checking there why they are flaky, how we can fix it, what are the problems, fixing them. Let's say that make the pipeline or the release pipeline works smoothly from the point of view of testing. Okay. This was, and also I did some kind of evangelism stuff. Going to the conferences, talking about Jenkins, about Jenkins file, and Jenkins pipeline, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And after, so you left CloudBees in one point of time?
Yeah.
Why? Now you had the perfect job. It was interesting.
Yeah.
You were at home.
Exactly.
Now I'm curious. Yeah. So, what happened?
Well, yes. The truth is that long before that, when I was in the pharmaceutical company doing the medical devices, at that time, I started contributing to one project that it was called. It's still called Arquililan. I started developing Arquililan, helping them because it was when I started learning Java E5, and I checked Arquililan. It was a really cool project. I want to start contributing. I started contributing to the project, and then this is something that changed my life. Contributing to Arquililan, and then I submitted it all to Devoxx. I think it was, I don't remember the year, but it was the year that Arquililan was released, or the next year, or the next year. And then I was approached by Dan Allen and Aslak, the creators of Arquililan, right? At that time, both of them were in RedHat, and they said, we saw that you are submitting about testing, about Arquililan and so on. We want to talk with you. And, we met there in Devoxx, and we did a booth together with Dan, Aslak, Bartos, David Blevins, and me. And it was like, wow, it's really cool. That it was like, I need to work in RedHat because it's amazing. Right?
Could it be that for unknown reasons we all met after the Devoxx to a dinner or lunch? Because I remember I don't know how, I was invited to a dinner by RedHat, and there was the Bartos, and there was, I don't know whether you were there, but there was even Gavin King for unknown reasons. So they were all, were you also at the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was
probably it was that year, yeah.
Yeah, and I was the only not RedHat guy. I have no idea how I joined, your party there, but this was interesting. I remember that we talked a lot about Arquililan back then.
Yeah. Because this is what I was contributing. And then, that I moved to all CloudBees. And then I really remember it was one Monday, because I don't know, these kind of things in your life that you remember and you don't know why. I remember one Monday that I wake up, I saw Hangout, a chat message from Aslak saying, "Hey, do you want to join RedHat?" I said, yes, it's something that, because back then I was using my free time on still contributing to Arquililan, right? Although I was in Cloudbase, but in my free time I just contributed more to Arquililan. And I said, yeah, of course I want to join RedHat. And then I joined RedHat for doing testing tools or testing frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was I'm just left Cloudbase because I had it exactly the same, but it's like, wow, it's my dream company, right? Moving to RedHat.
Mm-hmm.
So for this reason,
you are still at RedHat, right?
Yeah, I'm still in RedHat.
Yeah, and how long you are at RedHat already?
4 years.
Oh, okay. So this was this didn't happen recently. Okay. So what you did at RedHat so far?
Yeah.
So you spent your time with developing tools?
Yeah, I started with this, with doing developing testing tools. In fact, at that time, we started something that we called smart testing, right? That it's just what now Kashuk is doing in his company, but we started doing it. But at the end, for several reasons, we gave up the project. Mm-hmm. And then I started doing all the fabricated stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was doing fabricated stuff until the last year. And then I moved as a director of developer experience in the Burst team.
Okay.
Burst Sutter team. Yeah.
And I would say we should conclude our conversation right now and meet as soon as possible and have a chat about, some interesting projects like Quarkus and whatever interesting.
Yeah.
And where people can find you in the internet, Twitter and whatever.
Yeah, well, they can find me in Twitter. My Twitter is Alex Soto B. Mm-hmm. This is my Twitter. And also LinkedIn, which is Alex Soto Bueno. Mm-hmm. Or, for example, in my blog post is lordofthejars.com. Mm-hmm. And or in GitHub is github/lordofthejars.
So thank you. Thank you a lot. It was a joy to talk with you.
Well, thank you very much for this amazing conversation.